Hello, I'm Michael Redmond, professional Go player. In this video, I'm going to show you a game from the semifinals of the LG Cup. KJ, representing China, against Shin Jinseo, representing Korea. So I did some live streams for the quarterfinals of this tournament, and then I got really busy. So unfortunately, I couldn't do a live stream for the semifinals, and I decided I just had to show you this game. Partly because KJ and Shin Jinseo are both, they're two of my favorite players. So let's get into the game. KJ has the black stones, and he plays this opening. Pincering here, it's one of the few pincers that can be played still, even if you're working with computer-generated openings, which is probably true of these two players. Of course, the more common move might be to play the knight's move here or this move. Both of these are moves that are quite often suggested by computer programs. But pincering here is a move that can be played. And in this variation where black plays a knight's move on the second line, the qualities of this move is that when we compare it to the, you might say, the old joseki, which is still played, in this joseki, white has a forcing move here and can continue to push in a fairly forceful way. So that means that white can reinforce this wall and then fight strongly on the right half of the board. So black's extension there on the right side has potential to become an overextension, too far away from black's corner enclosure in the upper right. So the idea with this knight's move that was played in the game is that white does not have any forcing moves against it. So although white could play here, this is just, it's a bad move. So white's probably not going to do that. And so white doesn't really have any good forcing moves. And there is some potential for black to attack the white group. More potential than if black had played the other joseki this way. So black is saving strength, you might say, so as to have some potential to attack white. And that sort of explains white's move here. It could have been somewhere around here. That would have been another way to protect, but white did extend all the way here. Capping move. And also black plays here. This is a bit of exciting. It's one of the key points, but white's not going to answer it directly in this case. So in this case, white plays here and sort of dodges the peep. So pushing through at the start point at Q4, it's not going to be a decisive cut because white's going to switch to the right side. So black just plays here anyway. And whether this exchange, the two moves here, whether the exchange was good or not for black, it's hard to say. So black could have just not played that and simply played here. Something like this might continue. This would also be an even game. But in the game, black plays once here. Black does get a forcing move here, putting more pressure on the white group. But in defending the white group, white does get a slight gain in territory towards the right side. So all of these moves, they're more or less an equal exchange. So it's not as if black has gained a lot or lost anything either. It's hard to say. One of the things about these players, KJ and Shin Jinseo, they're both very well versed in computer openings, computer style openings. You see them playing moves that don't really lose a lot of points throughout the opening. So the openings stay pretty even. And white plays here. I actually did 2 videos about this attachment at the start point. And one video about black playing on the outside. So that would be this move. And one video about black playing from the inside. So from underneath. So that would be this move. I'll put links for both videos in the description. And if I do something right, you might be seeing a link somewhere at the top of the screen for the video about this one, which is the shape that was played in the game. And it's interesting because they did play a variation that comes up in the video. So I actually covered this move, which is the move that is in which white is putting more pressure on black's group in the corner and forcing black to slide. So the other choice for white would be to crawl here, in which case black will extend, this being the key point in shape, and white will push and black jumps. And in my video, I was suggesting that white would maybe play once more here and black would play here. So that was the local variation that I was talking about. In this board position, white's 2 stones, they're probably just dead as they stand, so black's not going to add that extra move there. Maybe not so efficient for white to be sacrificing them without getting any more forcing moves. So that would explain white playing here, which is the other variation that I talked about in the video. So this one puts some more pressure on black in the corner and induces black to slide here to stop white from covering at r15. And white gets an extra tempo on the outside. So in this case, these 2 stones, they still have some potential to move out towards the center. And again, to remember what I was saying in the video, I think I did a variation something like this, just because there weren't so many black stones waiting for white on the side. In this board position, it's probably not very wise for white to start the fight here immediately, and he did not. So you might remember that the board position in the video and the board position here, the local fight is black has a much stronger position in this board position. So white's not going to start the fight immediately, as I did in the example I used in the video. So white extends here. So with this exchange, white has made a living shape, a strong position on the upper side. And the general idea is that white is going to sacrifice the 2 stones on the right, although you will see in the near future of this game that white has not completely given up on them. And so these 2 stones are working to strengthen black's position towards the center. And white is getting a fairly strong position on the side. So that sort of explains black's invasion to the 3-3 point, which is a relatively simple way of sacrificing this stone at f17 and taking some profit in the corner in return. Just because white is strong on the right, that makes it that stone at f17 is sort of a potential problem for black. So it's a good idea to sacrifice it and make a trade. Black's getting some corner territory in return. So all of this seems very sensible. And now white plays here. So this is a shape move. It's looking at pushing through at p9. So it's a kind of a threat there. And if black had answered with something like this, then white would be able to move out with the 2 stones and start a fight there. So that's the general idea. Why didn't white move out immediately? That's a really difficult question to answer. I'd say this was also a possibility that white could have played. The game move is slightly more pacific. It's offering to give up those 2 stones when black plays like this, as he did in the game. You would think it's offering to give up the 2 stones, but he did poke out once. And when black played here, this is going to be a fight too. So it's sort of interesting that white played once from the outside and then decided to move out after all. So when white plays here, there's 2 holes in black's shape. So if black just simply plays like this, you can see that potentially it's going to fall apart when white does something like this. So that didn't quite work. And in the game, black wedges. So with this move, the idea is that if white plays here, black is going to squeeze. And white could have played this way. It would be something like this, and white would push through here. So white will save most of the stones. And I don't know if black is going to actually go after the 2 stones here. Black doesn't really need to do this anymore. So since black is getting a position in the center, it's not clear that black will actually try to capture these 2 stones. But it is clear that white is willing to sacrifice them if black cuts, obviously. So it would be this kind of fight. In the game, white cut on the other side. It's interesting. This is also close enough to even. As I was saying, these 2 players play variations that are so close to what would be suggested by a computer program. They're so close to that the score, if you look at the point difference, it's usually a fraction of a point or a point difference or something like that. Positions that we would, if we didn't have a computer to assess the position, we would call it an even game. So white sacrifices the 2 stones and gets to push through here. And the idea is that if black covers underneath this might have been better for black, but white will be able to save all of the white stones. And the fight will continue with black doing something like this. White playing here next is sort of an annoying move. White can break into the side a little bit. So maybe that's what KJ didn't like. He maybe didn't like the idea of white taking black side territory away. Also, the fact that all of white's stones are connected, it will mean that this black group has only one eye, so potentially could become a weak group. So in the game, black chose to, at this point, when white pushed through here, black chose the variation where black is capturing those cutting stones and is actually going to sacrifice 3 stones towards the side. So it turned out like this. For the time being, black has sacrificed those stones on the right side, but he got a nice territory in the corner. That's a fairly sizable corner territory. It's about 30 points. So black does have a lot of territory. If we count the upper right as approximately 30 points. Yeah. And then the upper left is approximately 10 points. Lower right is approximately 10 points. So that's already 50 points. It's a lot of territory that black has. And for the time being, white has this position on the right, which is, it still looks like it could be a bit fluid there. And then white has the upper side, which is also, because of the thickness that black has towards the right, the strong position black has there, it will help black to reduce the upper side. So that upper side is not a huge area. It's probably something like 15 points. So black does seem to have an advantage in territory. In actuality, the game is very close at this point. So they continue here. A reasonable variation. You might notice that white closed off the side. So black needed this move in the corner to make a living shape. And this move. This is a move, I remember playing it many years ago. So it's not as if this move is brand new. It's a fun move. It's sort of tricky. So let's go into variations for this one. What if white plays here? It looks like black might be in trouble. Black has various ways to save this stone at the 3-3 point. And one of them would be to play this forcing move, which is threatening to connect up at b5 and then cutting here. So this is looking at a double Atari on the 4th line. And if white plays here, black can connect up to the corner. So that would be one way to work it. Or if white crawls here, this is where it gets fun, because black can play here and capture the 1 stone, threatening to capture white in various points. So like covering here would capture 2 white stones, covering here would capture 2 white stones in the corner. White can stop both of those simultaneously by playing here. And should note that the ladder in this direction, it's not working for black right now. Let's just chase that ladder for a little bit. Sort of fun. Probably be even more funny if I turned out to be wrong, but actually this ladder, it doesn't quite work for black. So if black pushes from this side, if black chases from this side, it connects up like this. So obviously bad for black. Or if black chases from this side, similarly the white gets to connect up. So the ladder doesn't work. Looks like black might be in trouble. But black's going to play an attachment here. And if black gets this stone in, now the ladder is going to work. So in this case, that moves the ladder along once, that extra stone at 12. And now it's going to work. So let's just chase the ladder again. Just moving it along one line, it made a very important difference, and black wins the ladder. So just going back to the main variation there, when black plays the attachment, white will have to do something to stop the ladder. For instance, something like this. This would be a success for black. Black captures 2 stones there. So that kind of thing is in the works. There's actually a number of ways that black could have dealt with this stone, but for instance, by playing here would be another way to save. But the variation I was showing you is probably the more successful variation for black. So white didn't do that. White just pushed through. and an even result. The game is still very, very close. And it looks like they're about to enter an endgame. And when I went through this with Katago, it was at this point the graph changed a lot. And so this move, the logic behind the graph changing and turning bad for black is that black did not have enough co-threats to make this ko work, really. So it was starting a difficult ko for black, and in this case, black should have sacrificed an extra stone by playing here, and just played here. So this is, usually it's bad to give the 2 stones, but if we look at the position that black has in the corner here, with the hanging connection, if we look locally in the endgame, this is about as far as white gets anyway. So actually that stone that white, the extra stone that white got at 2, this stone here, is not working ideally to punish black in the corner. And so it's the corner position, the status of black's group in the corner has not really changed because of that stone that white got at 2. And so that's one of the reasons that it was okay in this case for black to give white the 2 stone capture. And black's getting some territory on the left side to make up for it. And this would still be a very close game. So this was the point. It's also the point where the game got sort of complicated because it is a ko, of course, and ko's do tend to complicate the game. But it was a difficult ko for black to fight. And it wasn't a direct ko, so you might notice that white actually played a move here that was not a valid ko threat. White didn't play a ko threat, but white was improving his position in the center and waiting, you might say, for black to start the ko, because it's a ko when black cuts here. Connecting the ko would not be a not very exciting move. So white would probably play away somewhere. Black's not getting anything yet. And in fact, capturing the stone here, it would be bad for black's corner group. So that corner group would now need an extra move to be alive. So connecting there is a bit slow. You can see in this position, you sort of wish, if you were black, you would wish that you could take that stone at 1 and put it in a better place on the board because it's not really working very well. So that's why black is not connecting there. And they fight this ko. Yeah, black's losing the race to capture on the right side, in case you were wondering about that. Connecting here on the 3rd line in a position where black would usually want to extend. This has to do with the fact that black's trying to take away white's ko threats. It is a local loss. So it's something black's giving up there in return for having an advantage in the ko. And so white plays down. This also cools down the ko when black can play this exchange. And well, if black connects on the 2nd line, the ko will continue. But it gives black an opportunity to back away from the direct ko here, having played some forcing moves. So now black is going to play on the outside and give white the advantage in the ko. So it turns out something like this. So in the end, the ko finally ends here with, it's not really a win for either side. It's still sort of undecided, but the value of the ko is very much reduced. So it's not so important anymore. And so it's more important for white now to try to surround the center. The game is still very, very close. And so white has this territory on the right side and on the upper side. Those are white's 2 territories. Black has a big territory in the upper right corner and the left side, the lower right corner, and a small territory in the lower left corner. And the territory is, it all depends on what happens in the center of the board. The game looks like it's going to be very, very close. So many of Shin Jinseo's games are very, very close. He's a very patient player. Most of the time his games go into the end game. So black is trying to force here. You can see black is threatening to push through at K17 and get a cut on the 2nd line. And that's what he does here. And black gets this forcing move. So threatening a double Atari at L18. So the whole sequence here, black was trying to press down on white's side there, but white also got to push through at J16. So it was an even exchange. And now black plays here. So this is the final fight of the game and the most important fight of the game. And this move, it seems to be a bit of an overextension, but it also seems to be working, partly because, for instance, in a variation like this, black has some potential space there in the center. And this is as far as I'm going to go here, because it's very, very complicated. Black seems to have some potential space there to make at least one eye, or maybe two eyes. There's some potential for black to be breaking out into the center here. And most important is the fact that this group that white has on the left, it's not alive yet. So black has some potential to be playing forcing moves against that group. Also, this is a forcing move. You can see black has some potential here to get some space. So I should really stop here. The whole variation is extremely complicated, but it looks okay for black to me. So that's my suggestion here, my verdict, you might say. But I'm going to admit that it is a very complicated variation. So let's just leave that at there. Obviously, Jinseo decided that that was too dangerous, and he played here. So with this variation, white is threatening a double Atari at G2, and got to break through here. And then connected. So this was potentially the losing move, actually, because KJ is going to break open the whole center with a brilliant sequence here. So what white had to do was white had to play a double hane here, in which case black would not be able to break into the center, would probably just take the two stones on the left. So something like this, and the game would continue to be very close. So this was the correct way for white to play, you might say, and white connecting here was a stronger move, but white got into trouble when black played this hanging connection. So the whole center is in question now. For instance, if white pulls back here, now this is the move that will be most successful in stopping black from moving out. So for instance, if black moves out on this side, white has a kind of a net waiting to happen here, and white will be able to enclose black in the center. So that's what white 1 is doing here. The problem is that black has this on the other side. So if black plays here, white extends, black plays here. There's no way for those two white stones to escape. They're already captured. So obviously that's good for black. So white extended here. White could have played here. For the time being, white can save these two stones, but that means that black is going to have a lot of forcing moves. Like anything in this area, any of these moves is going to be threatening to cut at h5. So it's not going to work out very well for white. So white just extended here. White's basically, to a certain extent, white's giving up. It's still a fairly close game, but it's gone really well for black, because now black gets to play two moves in the center and has broken into white's center territory. So at this point, it's a win for black. So just to go back a little bit, white's mistake was here. And white had to play this move that I did show you earlier, and it would have been a very close game. But white missed that opportunity, and after this move, black has broken into the territory in the center. Looks like a win. Very quickly, just one move here, because this is where KJ made his mistake. He connected. We're going to see how, while it's probably hard to see at this point, just two more moves. White extends, black connects, and white plays here. So this is a beautiful and very simple sequence, which makes miai of two directions. That being, if black plays on the left here, white can just play here, and black is completely surrounded. Like nothing is going to happen here. There's a snapback at J9, and white's solidly connected on this side, and so everything is very well, you might say good aji. There's nothing really for black to look at to reverse this. It's just not working. So there's nothing black can do there. Or if black plays in the center, not exactly the same move he played in the game, but if black plays in the center, white can play here. This is trouble for black on the left side. So this move that white played here, white's 174. This move, beautiful, very simple but beautiful move that made Miyai the left and the right, and gave Shin Jinseo the win in this game. So this was the winning move, you might say. And what black had to do is black had to pull back on this side, in which case black would have no problem saving those stones in the center. So it might turn out like this. White has some extra forcing moves on that side. Black just had to give those to white. And at this point, basically white has so many cutting points, it's just not going to work. So a sensible move would be to connect here maybe, and black can push through here and connect up like this. So it's easy. If white tries to stop that, a more stubborn move would be something like this, or some. This is just really painful for white. So maybe here. And white has to answer on this side somehow. It's just not going to work. Too many weak stones for white. So it's not quite working for white. So going back to the game, if black had played on this side, just with that extra potential to connect up like this, just to show you the one variation again, the fact that black can connect up on this side would have made all the difference, and it would have been a win for black. But when black played here and white got to extend like this, making a double threat, black actually wedged. This is very similar to black playing like this. It's just the same problem on the left. And this developed into a ko, but the ko was not very happy ko for black. It was an easy ko for white to fight. And this ko goes on for a while. I'll just show you the moves here. In general, it's just a very difficult fight for black altogether. So the status of the other areas is not really changing. Black's group on the right side is still losing the race to capture. And this left side is still a ko. And finally, it turned into this trade. At this point, white has a fairly solid win. So after that, they just played the endgame. I could show you the rest of the moves, I suppose. Straightforward endgame. Very well played, I believe. But black didn't have any chances after this. So just taking you to the end of the game, they did play it out. And white ended up winning by 3.5 points. So this was the game between KJ and Shin Jinseo, and Shin Jinseo won to get to the finals of the tournament. And his opponent will be Yang Dingxing, who played against Mi Yuting in the semifinals. It just seemed to be a bad day for Mi Yuting, so I'm not going to try to explain that game to you. So it's going to be Yang Dingxing versus Shin Jinseo in the final. And I do hope to follow that match for everyone also. Yang Dingxing is a player, when compared to players like KJ and Shin Jinseo, he's relatively new to the top of the tournament scene, but he's also very successful in the recent games that I've seen him play. So he's relatively unknown, but quite formidable. So I'm looking forward to an exciting game in the final. So I'll see you next time, and thank you for watching to the end.